Hello and thank you for joining us on the Sunday edition of Journalist Hangout. I'm Ayodele Osubako. Today on the program, 9 abducted APC students released after payment of ransom as gunmen kidnapped Nasarawa APC chairman. Riddle police armored vehicle with bullets. Parliamentary Staff Association of Nigeria accuses governors of the 36 states of the Federation of working against actualization, financial autonomy for state assemblies. Nigerians react as APC governors visit former President Jonathan as PDP hails him as an unblemished leader. And later on the show, Fashola orders trailers to vacate Ogiri, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway over perennial gridlock. I'll be hanging out with Wali Adeoye, Sam Ibemere, Gani Kairi Balogun will join us later. So if you're ready, let the hangout start now. Thank you for joining us. Tales of abduction by bandits, especially in the northwest, have almost become everyday news for Nigerians, with perpetrators becoming more daring in their attacks. 9 students of the Ahmadu Bello University, ABU Zaria, who were abducted along the Kaduna-Abuja road from their trip, that is going to Badagry in Lagos, for an exchange program, have been released. We were told that they regained freedom after payment of 2 million naira ransom for each student, 2 million naira, and there were 9. While families can celebrate their release, others are wailing over fresh kidnap in Nasarawa State. Gunmen abducted State Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Shekwor in Lafia. The State Commissioner for Police, Bola Lunge, confirmed the incident, stating that the personnel have been deployed to various locations to ensure safe release of the APC chieftain. Wally, let's talk about this ABU students. And they were going to a program at the French village here, and they were passing through Abuja Kaduna Express roads, and 9 of them, and they parted with 2 million naira. How much is that?
That's 18. That's a lot of money.
That's 18 million naira
18 million.
of bandits. So a certain set of bandits have been empowered with 18 million naira to buy fresh ammunition and way to terrorize us the more. What's happening here?
For committing crime, people have been paid 18 million naira. And there may not be justice if precedent is to guide us for what we have seen happening over and over again. This shows that kidnapping has become good business. Because when efforts are not made to arrest the perpetrators, the people will be emboldened, they will do it over and over again. Now we are just talking about the ABU students.
It's very lucrative now.
Yeah,
very lucrative.
Another incident of the APC, state chairman that has been kidnapped. I think it's a very unfortunate thing. In as much as we are happy with the release of these students, many of them will never get out of that trauma. Imagine being kept in the bush for more than 1 week. Probably there are women, girls among them. There is no way people can, so the scar will remain, they have to live with that scar forever. So I'm really shocked that, and this incident happens at the same spot, Kaduna, Lagos, Abuja highway, which is just about 211 kilometers. So I think
that's a very dangerous
it's a very dangerous road, and I believe it's not a cause, but it's going to happen again, because nothing has been done to ensure that we put an end to these perpetual, ceaseless cases of kidnapping on this highway. And what we have seen is that these kidnappers, it has become a business that, it booms. So I believe more people will go into this crime because, we may never get the people behind this kind of crime. More people will be kidnapped, people will perpetrate more crime, and nothing will happen. So these same people that kidnap these students, they might do another one tomorrow, because nothing is going on, nothing is happening. Nobody is doing anything to ensure that we impose sanctions, we use people as scapegoats to ensure that this kind of thing will not happen again. So it's quite a very unfortunate thing. And I hope that we are not going to continue enter the new year with this kind of tragedy.
Sam, this is not armed robbery again. People are not, people don't keep money at home again. So the regular conventional armed robbery has been reduced considerably. But this bandits, kidnappers on the roads now, it's as if they've perfected their act and the fastest way to get rich. When I was going to Evans' confession and everything, there's some clients he collected $1 million from.
Yeah, it's indeed a very sad story. We've lived with stories of this nature almost every day of our lives in the last couple of years. In fact, the rising incidence of criminality, you call it banditry, is one that has pictured our country, as one that appears to be returning to the British state, where anything goes, and it is a very sad development. We don't seem to be making any progress in terms of securing lives and property, which is the primary challenge of any government. Just like Wale said, the sad side to this story is that no arrests were reported, not to talk about prosecution. So while it's good news that these students have been rescued unharmed, while it's also good news,
paid the way out.
yes, this sad side to it, like I said, is we don't seem to make any headway. For the parents, in these very austere times, families are losing 2 million naira. And you can imagine the average Nigerian home. The money could have been borrowed. And like he also said, the trauma is going to remain for a very long time. All right? For the Nigerian place, you talked about hope. I doubt if there is any hope in the very near future. You already have a situation where the police, to borrow the word of our government, appears to be decimated, as it were, arising from the recent crisis that they faced. So you wonder if there's going to be any form of solution in the very near future. We can only hope that succor will come for the average Nigerian who has to struggle every day to earn a living. And after earning the living, risks losing the same to bandits, to criminals. And the sad story is that these developments are not confined to a section of the country. Okay? For the students who are on their way to Lagos. Recently, we learned about the abduction of a very senior lecturer on the Benin-Auchi, axis. Same thing, in most parts of the Northwest and all that. And you wonder how soon we can make, examples of people who are arrested for this crime. Ayo, I'm sure you still remember the story of Hamisu Wadume. Yeah. It's over a year.
Taraba guy.
Yeah, it's over a year. And nobody is saying much about it. So you wonder if this has been deliberately, swept under the feet, or if the law, as it were, is designed for for some individuals in society, while the others who are very vulnerable, cannot get any protection. So a lot of people are encouraged because it's become a booming industry. A lot of people are encouraged because they believe they can go into it without any serious investment and come out, well there. That is why a lot of people are encouraged to go into it, because the likes of the billionaire kidnapper, what's his name now, Evans, is probably enjoying himself somewhere. We know how our correctional centers operate. You'll be shocked that he gets the best of life, even while in prison. So it's like, well, fine, let me go get the money. Okay? The worst that will happen to me is I get into detention and I still live my life of opulence. Wadune's case is there. All right? Nobody is speaking up on these issues. And that's why this forum is really very important.
It's collaborators in the military.
Exactly, there, and probably killing their jobs.
Quite.
So this cannot continue. We have to speak true to our government, all right? Because if we fold our arms, the worst will happen. Again, you talked about the abduction of the APC leader in Nasarawa State. Now, this is the interesting thing. The people have become very daring. Yeah. That is the hometown of the Inspector General of Police, Lafia. So the guys are like, they want to take the battle to even those we perceive are the most protected. Yes, the most protected people on the land. So they become so very daring in Katsina, which is the home state of Mr. President. They go there, pick up his uncle and walk away. And then nobody has told us what has become of those who were, if anybody was arrested, what has become of them. So people are encouraged. It's a booming industry. They walk in with little or no investment, make so much money, and get out. And sadly, we are keeping those who are supposed to be superintending over these institutions. It's a shame. In other climes, the IGP would have probably walked away from his job. But here we're keeping them. Same thing is happening to other heads of our military institutions or our security institutions. And we just act as if it doesn't really matter. We don't seem to have this sense of worry. We're not in a hurry to solve anything. Other countries have moved on. And we're here still talking about, rescuing our students, and we're clapping hands. It's a shame. It's the shame of a nation that we are in a situation where every day, on the average, 5 crimes involving high-profile kidnapping is reported in the country. And we can't continue this way.
I want to take this break now. When we come back, we'll discuss more. It's still Journalist Hangout. It's your Sunday special edition of the program. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us. Osare Ganika Idubalogun is joining us, and we are looking at the state of insecurity across the country, and the students of ABU, they were actually abducted. They've gained their freedom, but not before they parted with 2 million naira each.
Yes. And not only that, don't also forget that even the police were also negotiating for their own officers who were kidnapped sometimes last year. We've reached the stage in our development that we can no longer say that the institutions of state that are created solely to provide security are working. It's either they are overstretched, or they are undermanned, or they simply are incompetent. It's all a combination of all this. Because one cannot really seriously say that we have reached a point where senior officers of the states are no longer safe to go back to their home regions, not to talk of getting results. And now they are targeting our children. And that to me is the ultimate act of a failed state. Because normally, even within criminality, there's something they call rules of engagement. Basically, there is honor among thieves. And things are moving to a point where brazen act of Badagry is going on at the stage that we cannot no longer pretend that all is well. I agree with the two of my friends who stated the fact that this is a sign of things to come. And if we don't do anything, it's going to get worse before it gets better.
While you're doing the chairman of the All Progressives Congress in Nasarawa, and I'm sure they would have been following him, and it's somebody who is politically, it's somebody of political interests, and the bottom line is that even if they comb all the forest and everything, they might not still track them down. So the family should be ready to pay the ransom so that they can make it.
I believe kidnapping involves a lot of planning by perpetrators, but the security operatives should be a bit ahead of them. Somebody is the chairman of the ruling party in the state. Naturally, when you know that kidnapping is going on, that it's a prime source, target anytime, any day. So I'm concerned that when people are taken, I assume it will take the kidnappers at least about 2-3 hours before they can get to a safe level where they will now keep the kidnapper. So within this window period, what are our security operatives doing? They come to your house, they take you away, sometimes 10-15 people, they load them in a bus and then drive. And you see, these places we are talking about, Lafia, Kaduna, Abuja Highway, there are no forests there. Savannah region. So even when people are in the bush, if there is area surveillance, you can easily locate them. And then the pattern is that when they take these people away, there is telephone conversation. You know, they tell you, bring 30 million naira. So in modern technology, you should be able to trace the source, of the person talking to you. I mean, if we are really very serious, track the number. And we're talking of 1 week, 2, sometimes they negotiate for about 2-3 weeks, and nothing happens. And then somebody goes there to hand over this money.
The ransom.
The ransom. In the past, we used to hear that the money is marked and all that, but it seems it doesn't happen any longer. And 18 million naira, they are not going to burn it. They are going to spend it in the open market. So if we have an effective security system, it shouldn't be very difficult to even track, the cash that has been paid, about 90 million naira, on behalf of. My fear now is that, you see, we are going to see a situation where politicians will continue to privatize police, because when they are targeted, when they are kidnapped, they will now seek for private protection at the expense of of the civil populace. And I also fear that what we are seeing, it might lead to arms race. Because when people kidnap and they get about 20 million naira, and it's good business for them, they will need to buy more arms in order to be able to create more cells and order to build more cells across the country. So it's a real danger that we need to tackle. It can snowball into anything.
I have my first caller on the line. I think Collins is calling us from Abuja. Thank you for joining us, Collins.
Yeah, good day.
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, Collins, you're live.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for joining us.
This is an issue of kidnapping.
Yes.
I heard one of the guests say that nothing is really being done. I think it will not be very correct. Something is really being done, because if you move from Abuja to Kaduna, you see detachment of policemen, and periodically you see DSS and people patrolling. But the problem is this: they are not really getting the targets. And again, that road hitherto, at least this time of the year, there is repairs, but now the road is so bad. And with the situation of the road, it encourages kidnapping. I think they identified somewhere, along the road. I've forgotten the name of the person, the place, but I will remember that is a hot spot for kidnappers. I don't really see much of the policemen around that area. And from what I learned, where these students were kidnapped is not very far from that area, so they should police that area enough. And one other thing is this: I think our policemen, they lack, our security agencies, they lack intelligence. They're only good at harassing unarmed citizens. It's because if they are intelligent enough, I don't see the reason why they should be going to people's houses. What technology are they using to track the NSAS protesters, to their home and pick them up, that they cannot use to track the kidnappers?
Thank you, Collins, for your contribution.
I think the point what you made was basically about the technological aspects of detection. It was not really talking about areas of, because it was very clear that what we need right now is to be proactive. That we are talking about the savannah region, that if you stand in one spot, you can see at least a kilometer in every direction. And this will require nothing less than 2-3 hours of forced march to get out of this open area. So I think it leads to the suspicion that kidnapping is not only for those that we see on the road, that actually is a network, including very high ups in the security services.
Yeah. I don't want to believe that conspiracy.
No, I'm not saying. I said there's a belief that there may be conspirators within the security system who partake, because it's obvious that in Nigerian intelligence community that can trace and monitor monies by certain people. Totally become deaf and dumb when it comes to this one that are obvious. And that's the problem starts.
So,
when we say nothing is being done, just like our friend who called, suggested, well, it's not to suggest that there is no movement, but you could have movement without any action in the real sense of it. He raised posers and also volunteered some answers, because if indeed the police was working with intelligence and they know that there are certain black spots on the Abuja-Kaduna highway, why would they then not police that portion of the space? And that's why I think that I said that he raised questions and he answered them. So that would suggest to me that they are also guilty in a way. I mean, if you know what to do and refuse to do it, then what have you done? Nothing, in my judgment. So I think that we don't need to paper over it. For us, it's a feeling of frustration. Yeah. The average Nigerian is frustrated. You can't move out. You can't travel. Believing that you will get to your destination in one piece. Nigerians are not asking for too much. The primary responsibility of government, like we have said, is to secure lives and property. And if you're not getting that, then we should not beg the issue. We're not here to beg any issues. What we're saying is that the so-called security architecture that government talks about all the time amounts to nothing if intelligence is not at the center of it all. And that's what we think that is missing.
That's based on technology.
Do you understand? That is what is missing.
Okay. All right, we'll take this breather. When we come back, we'll talk more. This is Journalist Hangout. Stay with us. Welcome back. The principle of separation of powers, especially in a federation like ours, entails autonomy for each arms of governments. The Parliamentary Staff Association of Nigeria is accusing governors of the 36 states of the federation of working against actualization of the financial autonomy for state legislatures. The association also accused speakers of State House of Assembly of showing nonchalant attitude to the matter. The national president of the association, Ahmadu Usman, said they may be forced to shut down all 36 state houses of assemblies if nothing is done to implement Executive Order 10 signed by President Muhammadu Buhari on financial autonomy for the legislatures. Can they do this? Let me start with you, Sam. For a very long time, these people have been clamoring for autonomy, especially financial autonomy, and they were talking about Executive Order 10 signed by President Muhammadu Buhari. Can you just enlighten us into what this is all about?
First, we need to properly situate this. Democracy is essentially about separation of powers. So those who talk about autonomy for the legislature are not saying anything that we don't already know, because there are three organs of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. And for democracy to thrive effectively, there should be decent separation of power between the two. It doesn't suggest that there wouldn't be collaboration. There will be collaboration. But those who have designed democracy as a system of government realize that if we don't have a meaningful separation of power, then you could have a situation where the three arms will come together and take undue advantage in our society. Okay, so the Executive Order 10, which was signed by Mr. President, is very well intentioned, and that is because there has been a very long clamor for it. Okay, and the essence is to ensure that the lawmakers, whose primary responsibilities revolve around oversight, representation and appropriation and all that, do their job in such a way that they don't appear to look like appendages to the executive. That way, those who are the governors cannot ask them to just do whatever they like. All right? So what the financial autonomy means in real terms is that once you have that power,
do not look up to the governor.
You don't look up to the governor.
They are not tied in any way.
Exactly.
The apron string of the executive.
So the disconnect here is you wonder why those who we believe, ordinarily should celebrate their independence are now asking or acting in a way to suggest that they are indeed grateful that they are tied to the apron strings of the governors. It just speaks to the way we have decided not to, operate democracy or run democracy. It's a shame, really, like I would always say, where the executive, the governors are across the entire country, and the guys didn't speak with any exception. They said the 36 state governors, as far as they're concerned, the legislature has become a playground for them. Indeed, in some states, they have refused to organize elections deliberately. And that tells you why they've decided to do all that. They appoint transition committee chairmen who are more like errand boys, okay? And that is because they want to continue to be in a position to determine how money appropriated for the states is exactly. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry, local government now. But even for the judiciary, they give you a pittance rather. I'm sorry, I got it mixed up. But even for the legislature, same issue of financial autonomy. If the budget says you should get X naira and the governor decides to give you X minus 1 minus 10 naira, it simply shows that you are not in a position. And once you remain in a beggarly position, you can't act yourself. All right? You simply accept what has been handed over to you. And that is not what I think that the visionaries, those who encourage that we practice democracy, really set out to achieve. So it's sad. It's a sad development as far as I'm concerned.
There's this tendency by the executive to always want to dictate what happens in the legislative arm of government. The governor is interested in who becomes the speaker, deputy speaker, the principal officer, so that they're not going to have any problem with that arm of government. And there are several states that they've refused to pass this autonomy.
Well, we have to go back into history and look at what really happened in 1999 when we started operating this particular constitution. The original idea, in theory, was that everybody will be separated. But you and I know that the experiences in Oyo and in Bayelsa have taught the governors that for you to really sleep well at night, you must have an input or
take charge of the House of Assembly.
Of the House of Assembly. So that's the realistic essence in theory. But in practice, we've not done that for a single day. And as new governors come in, they seem to want more power, especially when it comes to controlling the local government as well as the legislature. And because a lot of them were not there on their own self-cognition, they were not there on their own merits. They were selected and given the tickets. They do not have the anything for them to now work with to confront a governor. Because if you had been very popular in your own constituency, like some people in Lagos, if you remember, in 1999 and 2003, there was a particular politician who was always winning in Mushi.
Yes.
He was not on the major parties, but to go from party A and B, he will still win. Somebody like that can look up to the governor, knowing well that is safe.
And express himself.
But the crop of people we have there now, both at the legislative arm as well as local government, were handpicked most of the time by the governor or the party structure in the states. And they are picked not because they are intelligent or because they are smart. They are picked because they comply with party direction, which between you and me is essentially called the governor's direction. So, while Mr. President can sign executive order 10 on paper, in reality, it's going to be extremely difficult. Don't forget, even when they did that for the local governments to take their money, some local government went back to the governor to apologize for the effort to even try to take the money. That you know how to you don't have to spend this money. Just give us 2-3 rows per month here, and we are okay. It's called the Stockholm syndrome, or the Okutom.
When you're in love with your oppressors.
You just feel that you have to defend them, even though you are the one being oppressed. It's going to take a while for us to get out of this mess.
Wale, apart from the National Assembly, in this political dispensation, apart from the Senate and House of Rep, that has shown a little bit of, autonomy so far. A little bit, I'm not even referring to this 9th assembly, but when you want to refer to maybe the 8th assembly under Bukola Saraki, look, they showed a kind of independence.
Backbone.
Most of the 36 state houses of assembly, they are always aligned with the executive, because you find out the executive at the point in time will roll out cars, official cars, things that will make their offices and their tenure rosy.
Yeah, I think, like my colleague said, the pillar of democracy is separation of powers. But we cannot be talking of separation of powers when someone controls the source of fund. That is why the financial autonomy is very important. But then, having financial autonomy is one thing. Having internal democracy within the political party is another thing. The problem is that when they are going to elections, we discover that the primaries, most of the time, is the governor that will select his favorites. Yeah. Because he wants a state assembly that will dance to his tune. So we, in as much as it's very important to have financial autonomy, we must also have internal party democracy, whereby people can emerge based on the will of the people. It's a very complex thing. And you cannot have this even where you don't have a situation where people are stakeholders in the political party, the political process. The people are not the ones funding the party. What we have is a situation where somebody will just donate 20 million to the party, and then it takes over the structure of the party. Or like in the past, when we had NCNC, Action Group, even MPN, you discover that the first thing is that you have your party membership, and then every month you contribute something to that party.
Yes.
So you have a sense of
yes,
ownership.
everybody.
Yeah. So
We're all stakeholders in the party.
Our meetings are held, decisions are taken because we are all equal, equal stakeholders. But
If
today,
it's 1 naira,
today,
we used to form
money
the party.
bags have taken over the political process, and that's why it's easy for them to impose whoever is going to be members of the either state assembly or national assembly. So in as much as it's very important for us to have financial autonomy, we also have to look at the whole gamut of the whole political process, whereby people must have a stake, in the party ownership. People must own the party. People must be able to take decisions. People must be able to influence the party as individuals, as voters. Not a situation where the governor is it's not the chairman of the party, but it's actually the de facto owner of that political party. And whatever he wants, that's what you are going to get at the end of the day. So I think this is very important. We need to support them, but it's not enough, to having a kind of a transformed political system in the country.
Okay, I have a caller. Abdullah is calling us from Zaria. That's Kaduna State.
Hello, I'm Abdullah from Zaria. Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us, Abdullah.
Hello?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay. The problem, I think, is that as far as governors are in control of who will be the members of their state legislatures, and of course, running of local government elections, the issue of local government autonomy or legislature autonomy for the state will be something that will not be realizable. So it's better that the party should set a structure that governors should not interfere in the issue of nominating members of state house or assembly or local government. As far as I'm concerned, this will not be realizable if governors still control it. So that is my contribution.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abdullah. This thing has even sometimes, we're talking about separation of powers for those tiers of government, yes. And we now see beyond the legislature, we discover that it has even affected the judiciary. That's the judiciary in states, judiciary. You see, even the Chief Justice of the Federation most times is saying that there's no how we can achieve autonomy and stand on our feet if we still go cap in hand to the federal government to get our funding.
That's the irony of the situation. As far as I'm concerned, what we have on our hands is a weaponization of poverty. It's gotten to the level where, those who are privileged within the system, just throw baits at those who are slightly, more vulnerable, and they simply go on their knees. That's the irony of the situation. Like I said, when I spoke earlier, I had alluded, to the judiciary and even the local government. But for the judiciary, it is even much more surprising, because what you observe, across the states is a situation where the governors have taken almost effective control. And I won't be, scared to mention names here. In Rivers State, for instance, the governor almost on a daily basis is either dishing cars to, judicial officers or building houses and all that. Even in some other states. And you wonder...
Even his predecessor at the point in time locked the court for like a year.
Exactly. And so it's become more like, who are these elements? They can just, let's just pretend that they are part of the process. And you have a situation where it's just the executive that appears to be alive,
running the show.
Running the show. So it's really very disturbing, because what that tells any very keen observer is that what we have is a caricature of what democracy should be. Because if you have a situation where the legislative arm of government and judiciary are near helpless in playing their role in the democratic process, then we have a very, very big challenge. And it's not just in the states. Even for the federal government. For anyone who has observed our politics very closely, you realize that even the judiciary, there have been attempts to tamper with the powers of the judiciary.
Through finances?
All of us, yes, through finances. And we all recollect what happened, when the last CJ was removed. Let's not go through, we'll spend the entire day talking about the processes that led to his removal. But it simply tells you that even the man who is recommending that those at the other tier of government should do the right thing should also be speaking to himself. We should have a situation where you are not just asking people to do, but you should also lead by doing. So we expect and we hope that the judiciary, not just at the state level, but also at the federal level, is allowed to exercise its powers under the Constitution. We don't seem to have that level. You spoke about the level of independence that was exercised by the 8th Assembly. What do we have under the 9th Assembly? A station where we have a romance that has become almost very promiscuous. It's I'm sorry, but then that's what we seem to have, where the National Assembly, each time they should be seen to have taken decisions or to be taking decisions, will have to run to Asoro before they to get clearance. That's not what I think that this country needs. Yes, there should be some level of collaboration, but it should not be such that the National Assembly cannot look up to the executive and say, look, this is what we ought to do in the best interest of our country.
Okay, I have Jubril calling us from Kaduna State. Thank you for joining us, Jubril.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Jubril, thank you for joining us. I can hear you.
Hello, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Jubril.
You are speaking to Mr. Jibril from Kaduna.
All right, go ahead.
I'm very optimistic that the topic of discussion is local government autonomy.
No. Parliamentary autonomy.
Parliamentary autonomy?
Yes, that's for the state houses of assembly.
Okay, the parliament cannot be autonomy, from my own perspective.
Okay.
Because parliament are the people who make law for our country. Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah.
On that note, the need and aspiration of people, they must cater for it. And people in totality depend on them. Because hence the law they make reflects on the interests of people.
Maybe the more reason they should be autonomous.
Of course.
No, I think there's a problem with definition. I think that's what we are going through, especially those who are listening to us. What these people are asking for is that the structures of state assemblies be so autonomous in a way that no matter who is the speaker, who is the member, they can run this seamless operation. But right now, I think most of them have to report to head of service of the state. They still have to go through the civil service rigmarole to get things done. And that, to me, is where the problem lies.
Yeah, because if you have near absolute control of your finances, you don't have to go knocking on the governor's door to... Yeah. And the moment you beg for money to get things done, then there's a problem.
It becomes a rubber stamp.
Yes, it becomes a rubber stamp, like you said.
The original purpose of legislators is only to represent some areas and their interests at the state level or at the federal level. I think we've negated these aspects in the last 20 years. Because people just go into the assembly as a part of the executive. Your job essentially, if you are representing Oshodi, for example, and Oshodi has peculiar problems. Your job is to protect the interests of Oshodi.
And you query the executive, how they spend the budget.
So that's what we work with. All over the world, people go out of their way to protect coal miners. You're representing them. Oshodi for Oshodi now, that's why you have to protect the boys on the streets. Because the majority of people who work there. So go to assembly means that you have to represent interests of transporters, interests of traders.
Yes.
But that's why we've lost the way in what we are supposed to do in the first place. And we're not lamenting when we're already 300 years into the marriage. And it's already been consumed, like you said.
It is. It is.
Okay, moving on now. In a clear display of age-long maxim in politics that no permanent enemies nor friends, the governor of the All Progressives Congress, APC, held a private meeting with former President Goodluck Jonathan in his Abuja home. While some say this was to celebrate his 63rd birthday with him, others are reading political meaning to the visit because the former president is a member of the opposition People's Democratic Party. Plus, no member of the PDP was present at the party. Governor of Yobe State and acting national chairman of APC, May Malabuni, led the governor's visits. And Wale Adewi, 2023 loading.
Where? If there is a national...
The last time I checked,
yeah,
President Goodluck Jonathan is from the People's Democratic Party.
yes.
Okay.
And he has not made any open declaration that he's crossing over to the APC.
Yes.
If there is national interest, maybe on security, on anything that affects Nigerians, there's no reason why the ruling party cannot meet, the former president of the country, if it's defined with the context of national interest. But I think what I'm saying is a situation where the APC has a strategic agenda to decimate the Southeast and the South-South, which appears to be the strongest base of the PDP. You see what happened in Ebonyi State, that the governor he has moved out to the APC. And then, like we have heard, that some other governors are also, we don't know what will happen in Edo State anyway. So I think there is a conscious effort to woo over the most important political figures, either in the Southeast
on paper.
or in the South-South. And from the way things are going, I'm afraid in 2023, we may be having what is close to a one-party state in Nigeria. And these signals, they are giving the impression that the two main political parties are only different in form, but they are the same in content. Because with all what, all those things that were said about Jonathan, the 6 years that he was there, all the things that were said by the same people that are in power now. And then this man now suddenly becomes your bride. So it just tells you that politics in this part of the country is different. It's very fluid.
Very fluid.
It's promiscuous. It's flirtatious. You can be in PDP today. It's not driven by any ideology. You go to the United States, in Britain, people have been Labour Party for hundreds of years, based on certain ideas, maybe on environment, on job creation, on nationalization of the commodity out of the economy. But here, basically, there's no fundamental difference. There's not something you can hold on to say, oh, this party, I'm standing with this party because of these principles. So that's what we have seen. And it's going to rub on the next election in this country, that people will not find it very difficult to actually make a difference between the two political parties.
Talking in terms of his political stand, after he left office in 2015, the way he has carried himself, he has refrained from criticizing the government of the day. He has been going on international assignments, and I can say maybe his status is, has grown taller, and
his share value has gone up.
Yes. So some people have been talking about, not toying with the idea of, look, they might decide to woo this man back to the presidency. Well,
in the first place, the Budi-led APC has been going out to everybody. So let's quickly say that. They've been to Lagos, they met with party leaders in some other areas. So we cannot treat this particular visit in isolation. Number two, we all know that 24 hours...
visiting APC leaders.
Yeah, but you and I know that 24 hours is a long time in politics. So that's why I laugh at Wale's description using those innuendos. Because whoever is done over now can still be done over again and again until you get to 2023. But the reality is this. Jonathan looks like the man who's going to have the last laugh. Everything that he was accused of to have done has been done by this government. We are now in a recession. This government too has accepted that, just like Okojiwala accepted, that they were borrowing money from the Sovereign Wealth Fund to pay salaries. This government now said they cannot pay salaries at a particular point. So it seems that we have come full circle in the last 5 years of what Nigeria politics is about. So don't expect only Jonathan. Even I would not be surprised if they go back as far back as Shonekon. and people of that nature, because it's obvious now. Like I've said that 5 years ago, I'm going to say it again. We've run out of heroes. We've tried everybody, and the results have been the same. So what APC governors are doing on one part is basically to try to create, as you said, a national platform. The other part is like I said, they're trying to look for a new wife because it seems that the old wife is becoming recalcitrant and is not really behaving the way it's supposed to behave. So the only way you can get a new wife is to go east. So that again is also a reality. But like I said, 2023 is still about 36 months away, and this season film is in season 1.
Sam, in Bayelsa State's last election, they worked with, we're told that the ruling party, that's the All Progressives Congress, worked with the former president and his wife to the emergence of bewail, according to what we are told.
Yes.
And in furtherance, this one has not been far from the villa. At any slight opportunity, you see Mr. Jonathan smiling with President Buhari and APC, PDP supporters that are out there wanting to kill themselves on cyberspace and everything. But from what we've seen, the cordial relationship, and we'll be surprised if President Jonathan is looking towards the direction of All Progressives Congress, or they're wooing.
Okay, I'd like to begin by, making reference to an article I read, a couple of hours ago. It has to do with the fact that even Jonathan himself has, reacted to media reports of yesterday, that were speculating that there could be some other intentions, to the visit that was made by leaders of the All Progressives Congress. He came out to say that, and that is through his media aides, that indeed it is wrong to speculate that the reason for that visit was, political, in the sense that it was meant to woo him into the ruling All Progressive Congress. Should we take Jonathan for his words? Knowing politicians, you'll be doing that, at your own risk. Oftentimes, you find that they speak with both sides of the mouth, and like you said, 24 hours is a very long time. We've seen that there is absolute lack of character, if you permit my word. People move at the slightest excuse. There are several examples. Umahi just did a couple of days back.
No sense of shame.
And he has told us that the reason he had done that was because he has the interest of Indigo at heart. That of course, is debatable. But back, to the question you raised, what has been the body language of former President Goodluck Jonathan in the last 1 or 2 years? You alluded to the elections in Bayelsa, where there was very wide speculations that he and his wife, had very soft spots, for David Leon.
APC won Obuya local government.
Yes, they did. If we are to delve into the rumors, we may not be too far from the truth in terms of his body language, because even after the results were announced, before David Leon lost out at the courts, the APC leadership visited with him, and they were very warmly welcomed. Of course, you could argue that for a former president, I mean, he's almost a father figure, so people can visit him and walk away. But it's clear that there were reservations, even though not public, made by, coming from the home of former President Goodluck Jonathan. You could feel that. It was clear, and in this part of the world, and indeed any part of the world, there is no smoke without fire. So for those of us who have watched our political space very keenly, we might not be totally far from the truth, given the role he had played, his body language in the last couple of years. But Ayo, one fact still remains, that politics, as far as I know it, not just in Nigeria and elsewhere, is interest-driven. It's interest-driven. Oftentimes, we make the mistake to believe that it's about you and I. Far from it. The first thing is about what is in this thing for me. And we've just cited examples. Let's not, keep repeating names. It's about what's the next game plan for me? Do I need to sacrifice anyone and anything to grab power? Because access to power gives you leverage, access to resources which you can then dispense, at will. And that's what matters. So the visit, to the home of President Jonathan, by the APC leadership, we're told it's about his birthday. Fine, happy birthday to him. But that visit was not just an ordinary visit, in my view.
The acting national chairman.
Yeah, the entire leadership, including Ken Namani, who is supposed to be. We understand these things. So, but like Wale said, this is about 2023. The general sentiment is that the presidency should go somewhere to the southeast, understandably.
To the south.
Or to the south. Well, to the southeast.
To
the southeast. When it comes to the south, they can then decide where to go. But we know that for those of us who come from that part of the country, even though we want excellence to determine who occupies that space, we believe that justice, in our view, will be done if the southeast has access, not to Igbo presidency, but to a president of Igbo extraction. Let's not make that mistake.
On the PDP platform.
Yeah. Well, it could be any party. It could be any party. And then you also want to ask, why wouldn't it be APC? The most important thing, as far as the sentiment, weighing, is that section of the country should have access to it. So it's about 2023. That territory has to be won over, emotionally and otherwise. And I think that is what the ruling party is trying to do. Cultivate those who are leaders, who have very, respectful following within that region. And I don't think there's anything wrong about it. It's shared politicking, and anyone could do it. But kudos to Goodluck Jonathan, that after so many years of being, in quote, rubbished, he appears to be coming out clean. He's now seen as another statesman who will be asked to run errands for the federal government, the same, government that accused him and members of his household of, putting their hands, in
Commonwealth
and taking from our common patrimony. So it's good that, like our colleague said, that he appears to be, coming clean on the entire matter. It's good to him, and I join others to celebrate him on his 63rd birthday.
Finally, on this, we were talking about party ideology, talking about the difference between APC and PDP. Some people will tell you that it's just the difference between 6 and half a dozen, that we don't actually have a clear niche for these things in Nigeria. When it's convenient, some people are in APC today. When the power is tilting to PDP tomorrow, they take the lead. Wale?
Well, if you look at the most important political figures in this country, from 1999, only very few of them that you can say have consistently remained in one political party. Either they have been in ANPP, PDP. Some have gone around almost all the parties.
Even in once.
So you now wonder what really is the fundamental difference. And even in terms of deliverables, take all the states, the states of the federation. Probably when you take Lagos and a few states, you can't say, okay, we are taking this state because this state is PDP or this state is APC. So that people can now learn from that and say, okay, this party has made a difference. So I think what we have seen is individual differences, not actually on party ideology. So I think those who say that they are saying as being the same political party, they are correct. They are correct. I don't see any fundamental difference between the APC and the PDP. That is the truth.
Well, you have to understand that self-interest is key. As you say in Yoruba, it is your self-interest that will trump your sense. No matter how smart you are, if at that point in time something is your self-interest, you throw away the logic that you normally apply and apply this one because it's your common sense. So that's what we are, and we cannot really pretend otherwise. Of course, there's a difference between PDP and APC. PDP ruled for 16 years. APC is ruling for the 6th year. And our prayer is that they don't make the same mistakes PDP make. Or else Nigeria will
be... from Abuja. Abraham is calling us from Abuja. Thank you for joining us, Abraham. Hello. Are you there?
Hello.
Yes, go ahead with your contribution.
Good evening.
Good evening, Abraham.
Hello.
Yes,
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. I just want to chip in something on your topic now.
All right, please do.
Actually, APC can't win on the polls. They want to start using the ESCC to muscle out people. So we have seen what happened to Akpabio, but that did not change Akwa Ibom to APC. It's just unfortunate that they are going that way. It's not going to be fair to them to use the ESCC against somebody. What has happened to my governor in Ebonyi State is not.
Okay, I think we lost him. We lost him. Finally, as you were saying.
Yeah, the reality is that whatever works for you in your locality is what you go with. There are areas, even in the north, that has never been ruled by PDP. And there are areas, even in the south, that has not been ruled by APC. So it's not really a regional thing, it's not an ethnic thing, it's not a religious thing. It's just that whatever is the interest of your people and the party that may represent that interest at that point in time is what to go for. No more pretension that somebody is the bad guy. Everybody is a good guy until they turn against you. Then they become the bad guy.
I like that.
Okay, and finally, then the Minister of Works and Housing, Babatunde Raji Fashola, has directed trailers parking indiscriminately at Ogere section of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway to immediately vacate the area to give way for ongoing construction works. The minister stated that parking on the highway was a violation of the country's traffic laws and asked the newly constituted task force on traffic laws by the Ogun State government to enforce the directive. He noted that the truck and trailer operations are private businesses, hence they are supposed to provide parking spaces to their fleets rather than roadsides. It's a common sight, Wale, when you are coming from Ibadan. When you get to that axis and you discover that they started work there, but still this trailer, they are still littered around the place. I don't know the rationale for parking there.
Well, I think Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is a nightmare for many travelers in the past few years. This a place that was built in 1978 and has not been actually expanded. And you could imagine the development that have taken place since that August 1978, to now.
The number of vehicles.
So many years, We are talking about almost 1.7 million, travelers. I understand 2019 January and 2019 December and January this year, about 1.7 million, vehicles like that road. I passed through that road last week, and just about 127 kilometers from Lagos to Ibadan. But if you are not careful, you can spend 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours.
From this Kara Bridge.
Yes. So you just discover that when you are passing through, it's like going through hell. I don't know if these trailers will take the instruction, because we have had this instruction passed on to them over and over again. And you wonder whether what we are building is car park, trailer park or highway. Because what they do is that they block the way, then every time you see cars taking one way. So something that you are supposed to spend about 55 minutes, you end up spending about 7 hours if you are not careful. So now that we are moving towards Christmas, it's going to be more serious. It's going to be more terrifying for a lot of travelers. And this road is the most important, in this country. That is the most important economic route. Either you are going to the north or you are going to the east. So it's so critical to our economy, so critical to our life. I hope the trailers will listen to the instruction passed on by the Honorable Minister, and they will carry out that, with dispatch, so that they can relocate them. But then I hope that while we are asking them to move from this highway, we are also providing alternative, or we are creating a new network that will make it very difficult for them to settle permanently, in that area. Ogere has become a town where people just come to settle, and if you are passing through that place, look, it's hell, especially when you have children, women, pregnant women, trying to use that route at any time of the day. So I hope that something will be done. And the message from the minister is not just another slogan that we are going to see the impact, you know, in the next few days.
That particular road has been under construction for years.
For almost 20 years. Every government.
I don't get.
2013.
Now the date that has been given now is 2022, and there was a time Julius Braja was handling the Lagos Shagamu aspect of it, and RCC
Reynolds construction,
like that. But what we've seen, the pace of the road, the slow pace, the accident on this road, and it's so frustrating. That, like you said, a journey of 1 hour can turn out to be 7-8 hours. That Lagos to the Express Road.
Actually, the other side is virtually ready. The one from Ibadan.
Okay.
We're going to go to Samanda or Tapadi just before Ogiri. That's where the problem starts. And then the built-up areas around Mowe, the access. Anyway, Julius Baga area, that's where the main problem lies. But once you pass through Ogiri, 30 minutes in Ibadan, because I took the road yesterday, and those areas are very good. Both sides, wide, well paved. I think the minister is just trying to be clever by half. You know the owners of these traders and bankers. You know why they're there. Don't forget, OGD, the former governor of Ogun State, made all this noise. If I got to a point, he created a park. Amos Uke made all manners of noise. He even came further down to create another park on the right. These people just ignore them. They have powers that be somewhere that's telling them ignore these directives. Because they know nothing will happen. There was a Lagos governor who also made the noise about Papaya. Giving them 60 days, he had eggs thrown on his face. Then after 60 days, he had to start configuring what he said. He didn't actually say 60 days. He said by 60 days, something is not done. So this is going to be there when Fashola is surfaced. They are still going to remain there when the new minister comes in. Because we don't have the political will to truly deal with this matters. What are they doing there? They are not from there. If they are coming to Lagos to pick, in these days of telephone, they can call you. Time to come.
Let's take this bill. We'll take this break now. When we come back, we'll talk more. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're still looking at the directive given by the Minister of Housing and Works that Minister Babatunde Raji Fashola on the indiscriminate parking at Ogiri section of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. And we discovered that it's not only Lagos-Ibadan Expressway that is affected. We also have the Shagamu axis. If you are leaving from Lagos to Benin, what it used to be a 3-4 hours journey now, I'm telling you, on a good day, you could invest 7-8 hours on that stretch. So generally, GKB traveling by roads in Nigeria is not so attractive again. Apart from the hazards of insecurity that you find on the way, it's not something that is pleasant. Pleasurable.
You and I know that in some other countries, people eat the road for holidays. They just love to travel because the roads are wide, the speed is controlled, and relatively, 99% of the time, accidents are rare. But in Nigeria, we build roads for the moment, not for the future. And that's the problem we are going through now. If you remember, most army barracks were built in the bush, in the deep forest. The Lagos airport was 20 kilometers from the nearest settlements when it was built in 1977. Today, people are next door. I'm giving you examples of why our roads are not working. Our population is exploding at a rate that our roads are not matching up.
Sometimes GKB is
we don't have the trains.
Yeah, it's always even a pleasure to hop on the next Greyhound.
Yeah.
And you want to run around.
And you know the time.
The time that you are getting to wherever you are getting to. You stop and 10 minutes, 20 minutes.
I took Greyhound from Atlanta to Chicago. 10 hours to Dallas. 10 hours. And they walk to time.
Yes.
And of course in the UK, that once you get to the bus stop, they will tell you when the next bus is coming. We've not built our infrastructure to that level. Our roads are still at the 1970s level. We've not built a road for, even Abuja, that was originally planned for the future, is now choked in certain areas. That's why you also somewhere like in Maraba or Kuje, where you cannot move for hours. On a road that is about 10 lanes, and you see traffic going back at least 2 kilometers. It's failure of planning, it's failure of foresight. And the only way to get out of it is to build road system and to reclaim our roads. Because they've been taken over by everybody. 30 meters is the law that you must stay away from, so that for future expansion. But now we have houses and churches right next door to these roads. And it's going to be very politically inexpedient to throw them away because they are voters. If they have to be a military regime, yes. But now people are built up on land belonging to airports. They build up on land belonging to the railway. In my area at Fagba, last week they came to clear all these loafers. They are back there today. Government cannot come every day to keep clearing areas. Because, so back to Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, like I was saying before we went on break, the law is very clear. This is the age of technology. If you have to come and take fuel in Lagos, and in Sokoto, you are just a phone call away. You don't need to stay in Ogiri for 6 months to pick up your cargo. Stay wherever you are. They will call you once it's set. Even something that's common, instead of congesting our roads, stay back home with your family.
I have David calling us from Ogun State. Thank you for joining us, David. Yes, David. Thank you for joining us. Is David there? Okay, GKB.
So what we need to do, especially for Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, is not what the minister is saying. What we need to do is to do an holistic something between Lagos, Oyo, and Ogun governments, and make sure these trailers, most of them are not indigenous to this area, to simply go back home and stay with their families on their accord. I'm sure even people from the north are aware of the way these things are done. For those going to Hajj every year, all you have to do is pick your phone, and the day of your departure is there. You can monitor the number of trucks that are being loaded and when it will be your turn. So it's not a matter of a sectional thing. A lot of them that go to Hajj knows this. Your phone will tell you where your own flight will be. It will tell you when you are supposed to come back to Nigeria. Okay. You don't need to congest the roads for the sake of congestion.
I think David is back. Thank you for joining us, David. Yes, thank you for joining us, David. I think something is wrong with his line. So, must all the trucks, they have to access Tinkan Island, and for 36 states, they have to pick PMS. Don't you think there's a problem? The burden on the roads.
And cargo.
For that fact that you're coming through Lagos-Ibadan Express Road and everybody's passing through these toll gates, going through Kara, and every point in time you hear of tanker explosion, trailer explosion, and this is what you get.
Ayo, GKB has already spoken extensively on the issue of planlessness. That's what I see. Sadly, it's a long history. It didn't start today. We have failed to deploy data in our planning. That is what has led to the crisis that we have in the road transport sector, and indeed, almost every other sector of our economy. So when the Honorable Minister speaks about, trailer drivers leaving the highways, you cannot but feel for him. As far as I'm concerned, those are just, let's just say something. We've had a history of failures, such instructions or advice being made in the past and nothing came, out of it. So like I said, we have had a history of planlessness. Did we make any projections into the future as to what these different road networks, would look like in the coming years, and the population, that will use, these roads or assets? I'm sorry, I doubt if serious strategic thinking went into this. You speak about Tinkan, the Lagos, the Apapa port, axis, and there's only one word to describe it: disaster. The last time, the last time the vice president, came into town, I don't recollect how long ago, probably a year or two. It was everywhere on media, up there in the sky, taking shots of, what he thought was wrong. And some of us were asking, do you need the vice president to come to Lagos to assess what was wrong with Apapa. And for me, it made a mockery of the entire thing. And ever since, we've not had any improvement on that axis. It has become a huge racket, if you ask me. The crisis that we have in the Apapa axis, people have set up shops, tolls are collected. Ayo, if you have any doubt, just take a drive.
But this is contrary for what my friend Kaido Kwefa sends to my phone every day. That's Apapa Road today. Okay.
I feel for him.
No,
I feel for him.
I
I feel for him because he has to keep his job. So
every day I get reports almost on a daily basis.
He has to keep his job. It's definitely
backed up with video.
My wife works in that axis.
Oh God.
And I don't want to spend time painting the picture of what she goes through every day to go to work and come back. And add that to the fact that we now have a huge number of hoodlums on that axis.
Okay, we have Vincent from Abuja. Vincent, thank you for joining us.
Hello?
Yes, Vincent, you're on. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Vincent.
Hello?
Yeah, with you.
Yes, Vincent, you're on live.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ayo.
Yes, just step away from your monitor.
Yeah, I want to take you back to the issue of autonomy you discussed before.
All right.
Yes, I want to take you back to the issue of autonomy you discussed before.
Go ahead, Vincent, please. You just need to step aside, step away from your monitor.
About my state.
Okay.
The local government election is scheduled for 12th of December.
Okay.
In Kogi State.
Okay.
Hello, are you with me?
We are with you now.
Yes, but if you look at what happened in Kogi State, all the aspirants for local government and in the APC were selected by the governor, depriving other aspirants like me from contesting the election. In that situation, once you come up, I don't think you'll be able to do anything rather than to dance to the tune of the governor. And that's my contribution. Thank you.
Yeah, I am sure. I'm sure we'll return to that. Yeah. The second leg to my views, regarding the bottlenecks that we have, in the transport sector, is that because of the nature of the roads that we have, we've done a lot of disservice for investors in that key sector. We have a lot of innovative transport companies. You talked about the Greyhound, which is very popular. We have companies of that caliber doing business in this country.
Yes, sir.
But deploying their fleets, making returns on investments has become a huge problem. And I'll give one example. A very popular one, the GIGM.
That's God is Good Motors.
Yeah, God is Good Motors.
Gone online.
Very innovative transport. Probably one of the most visible on Nigerian roads.
Executive buses.
Absolutely. But what do you have? Every day, the challenge of doing business confronts these companies. And that is because a journey, like you said, of 7 hours from Lagos, or 6 hours between Lagos and anywhere, somewhere in the east, maybe Owerri, takes almost the entire day. Very low returns on investment. And these are... Yes, these are organizations that have committed so much, okay, employing people, a large number of people in their employ, and they expect to make money and pay their staff. But we don't have that. So it is true that the government is making very stringent efforts to improve services within that sector. But we think that more needs to be done very urgently. And there is need to work with numbers. There is need to work with numbers. That is what is lacking at the moment.
Statistics and projections.
Absolutely. We need to work with the numbers. You ask yourself, how come these trucks have been lined up our roads for so many years? even if we were to start constructing new motor parks or garage parks, or garages rather, for them, it wouldn't take 5 years. The situation in Lagos is such that you can't even tell. You speak about your friend who keeps telling you that progress is being made. But you ask yourself, it's been 4 years, and you can't drive into Tinkan without stress. Not even on weekends. And you wonder what the problem is. So I think we need to be very sincere and very transparent about what we believe is wrong and what needs to be done to ease traffic on that axis. As we speak, people are suffering to gain access into that area. It's not improving.
Don't even forget the menace
a journey of
Okada riders.
Yeah, a journey of 10, 15. I mean, last 3, 4, 5 days, we had a crisis on our hands. And you couldn't access the proper axis because there was breakdown of law and order. Not because the rules had not been made, but because our people just felt that they didn't want any apologies and they wanted to break the rules at will. And no government will fold its arms and watch that.
There are too many agencies along the proper axis, basically that get in each other's way. And what kind of Obama said is true. The subcommittee on, they are working very hard to clear a particular portion. But the moment you clear it, because Kadi himself will tell you, when he was commissioner for transport, that anytime you step on a break in Lagos, that is 7 minutes lost. Anytime you step on a break on a Lagos road, that it takes you 7 minutes to go back to the speed that you are coming with. So whatever they are doing today will solve the problem of today. But these tankers and trailers come into the ports at the average of 200 per day. It seems that every trailer and tanker in Nigeria
is heading towards Apao.
Yes, now. They don't have anybody pick the goods.
And we keep saying, look, we don't need to be here physically. That's why I gave the Saudi Arabia example. And it's not run by Saudi Arabia, it's run by Nigerians. The Nigeria Commission is on their website. Once you have your number, you log in, you know when your flight will be. Okay. They can apply the same thing.
David
you know
is
when
calling
you
us
pick
from
your
Ogun
load.
State.
Then you can come.
Thank you, David. Hello, David. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead with your contribution. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, David.
I'm speaking from Ogun State.
All right, go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm talking about, the problem, that arises on the Ogiri. That resulted in, people talking about, 6 hours on the road. I think it's a holistic problem. Something that the problem we have in this country is that of fire brigade approach. Before the construction gets to Ogiri, the contractors know that definitely they should provide an alternative route for people. The government of Ogun State knows that definitely, if there are only 5 trailers, for instance, it has security implications, it has economic implications. People have been selling around. It has a lot of, thieves will also live. All this will have to be taken into consideration. The matter that the minister is giving, an instruction. The Ogun State government should be involved. The federal government should be involved. Everybody should know that, look, it's a joint effort. There should be provision of alternative place for these, trailers. They are massive. It has economic implications. So you cannot just talk without, people that are concerned that should take, their own responsibility.
Thank you, David.
Security should be involved.
Thank you, David. Thank you for your contribution.
OGD built in 1,500, I think.
Yes.
It's a trailer park. It's a trailer park there on both sides.
These
people will not go there. And
they want to stay.
They want to stay on the road, and they know nothing will happen. Not only that, they've now turned the place into a settlement.
But GKB, shouldn't we query why, first, they have refused to take advantage of those parks? 2, if they have willfully resisted using those parks, what is government doing? Thirdly, you raise a very critical point, okay, which revolves around, we know who the owners of these trucks are. So you have a parapet kind, sorry, I'm using that word again here. He's my friend, so let's not disturb his business. Okay, we don't want to mention names here, but the company we are speaking to understand these things. It's a huge investment in the Nigerian economy, but then the right things need to be done. You don't ask your drivers to just park the trucks along the way, and then the minister gets a call and says, you know, they're my boys, allow them. If the trucks or the trailer drivers that clog the entire expressway believe that the cost of using the parks is a challenge, what does it take for the state government to intervene? Because there is something called economies of scale. Why charge X naira when you can charge X minus 1 naira and make more money? So who loses? The country loses. Because, my brothers, if you visit these highways, of course, you know what the level of damage that trucks can render on the roads. Massive weight. Yeah. And the roads, of course, sometimes are very poorly constructed. So the moment they dip their tires into, the entire place is gone. So what would it take? We need some kind of synergy between the state governments and all the stakeholders. It takes nothing because some of these parks are there empty and they're not being used.
Because what is affect ultimately doing business in Nigeria and the number of times that you can go and come. And also, if you ask me, I'll tell you that to save my stress, if I'm going to Benin now, to save stress, I'll prefer to fly. If I'm going to Akure, but then when you look at the time and what you want to see,
the cost benefit.
The cost benefit, if you dare go by roads.
The implication of what you are saying is that the poor people are the receiving end. Most of the time, these days when I travel from here to, you hardly see the coming of a big man. Because if you are going to Ibadan from Lagos, an important person can take chartered flight. So we have been abandoned to our fate.
Helicopter.
From here, I drove almost to Lokoja. I don't think there is a place where you can drive for 20 minutes without an obstacle. Consistently for 20 minutes from here to Lokoja. So, and in fact, after Ibadan, between Ibadan and Lafia, there was a time we had to veer off into the bush.
You drove?
Yes. We had to veer off into the, because the whole road was bad, and then people were taken to the bush path. When we got there, we had to look for cutlass to be cutting.
Okay, let me just comment there. Aremu is calling us from Kogi State. Thank you, Aremu, for joining us. Yes, hello? Thank you, Aremu, for joining us.
No, thank you.
Yes, Aremu?
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Aremu.
Yes, I'm hearing you. Yes, this is Aremu on the line.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm calling from Kogi State. Okay, I'm calling from Kogi State.
Go ahead, please. We lost the man from Egbe in Kogi State.
Yeah, Egbe is one of the greatest victims of what we are talking about. Wherever route you want to enter, either coming from Ogbe or coming to Gegebo, no access. A very beautiful city, but so isolated, that you can hardly access the city. So this you can't travel by road. You are talking of how many Nigerians can actually travel by air. How many airports do we really have? So I think it's a major problem. Now, when you can't speed, you are at the mercy of armed robbers, of hoodlums, So it's a very big problem. If we can't fix our routes, what then is the responsibility of government? We can't fix transportation, we can't fix education, we can't fix water. So what is it? When people cannot move around, and you are talking about freedom,
and they are not safe.
So it's a big problem. But you see, this Lagos Road, Ibadan Highway, I think the Southwest governors should be thinking of an alternative.
Okay, as a long time from Kogi State is back. I remove from Egbe in Kogi State.
Hello?
Yes, thank you for joining us. Please go ahead.
This is Aremu from Egbe in Kogi State.
Okay. Go ahead with your contribution, please.
Yes, I want to make a comparison between that of Obajana and Ogere.
Okay. Yeah,
when Dangote people started, I was a transporter, so I used to carry goods to Obajana. The road was equally congested like that of Ogere. But as time went on, they built a massive park. Dangote also have more than 2,000 trailers.
Yeah.
So they built a massive park, and that one removed the bottlenecks at Obajana. And you will, I can recollect one of you people said, OGDP,
Yes.
He built parks. The park helped a lot as at that time. But within a month, the trailers increased. You know, in Nigeria, things increase every day. So the park that Ghana built was not enough. So what successive governments should have done is to build more parks, so that people can have enough place to park. The idea of saying, live here within 24 hours, then people, they will leave, they will still come back. And those people, they are more or less government on their own. All those transporters. I was a transporter before. I was a clearing agent in Apapa and Tika before the ports were balkanized, that is, they were privatized. And inside the port, we have enough spaces. But most of these people, they want to live like they are in Europe, so they don't even allow enough trucks to enter.
Thank you, Aremu. Thank you for your contribution.
Well, I think in solving this problem, it's not just a statement from the minister alone. The other stakeholders, Nigeria Union of Road Transport Workers, Pengason, they should be all involved so that we can come out with a solution that will be acceptable to all of them.
The solution is technology. Sooner or later, the trains will start to work. And by then, of course, they will have all these, what do you call it, free trade zones, what do you call it, where they move the ports inland ports, and start to operate. But that's still 5-6 years down the line. We cannot use all our land, all our farmlands to create trailer parks. We cannot. We don't have that kind of resources. Niger alone is bigger than the entire Southwest. Why do you take our little land that we can use for food to build trailer parks that we don't even own? The point here is clear. Deploy technology in such a manner that you only come to the port when you have something to pick. It's not rocket science.
You know, I share your sentiments. Interestingly, the issue of technology as a solution has been bandied for so many years, and you wonder why it is not working, or why it has not been...
Sorry, sir. That's why I gave the example of the Nigerian Hajj Commission. They move 6 million people every year, and it works such a way that all you have to do is pick your phone. What's your program?
GKB, you and I on the same level. We're saying that at some point, it was touted that phone calls and all these automated, devices or whatever will be deployed so that the trailers won't clog the entire system. So my question here is, why have we not allowed these processes to work? The technology that you talked about. Because I recall very vividly that at some point our friend, spoke about it. What is difficult in deploying technology to solve this problem? I'm sorry I'm going to be referring us to the issue of IPs and UTAS. Ask yourself, it's no magic. These solutions are being deployed every day elsewhere, and they are working. What that simply says to us is that there seems to be a deliberate effort to sabotage the entire process.
To maintain the status quo.
Exactly, because people are reaping from it.
Billions.
Okay? Yes. And then, secondly, our friend talked about the parks. How many of them are still functional?
They're there.
They are there.
I know that the one is working, but it's filled up at a point. Okay. Because the point we were making, that the man also made, was the fact that they did a projection for 2,000 trucks. A week later, they had 4,000.
I want to thank you, Wale.
Lack of data.
Thank you for your contribution. And Gani Kaide Balogun, GKB, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure.
Sam Ibemere, thank you so much for being part of today's edition. Join us tomorrow for our regular program. That's Journalist Hangout for 5 p.m. And you can watch the repeat episode at 11 p.m. tonight. I'm Ayodele Ozubakun. See you tomorrow, and God bless Nigeria.